Alright, so this is a little more off the cuff. I mean, if you've been here a while, you might remember I used to do some of these where I would talk over something that I'm working on. And I thought about bringing it back, only in so much as, like, just smaller videos in between other big projects in which, I mean, as you've known and seen, I tend to take a lot of time in between videos, only because life happens. So this is going to be a little more off the cuff, just as the title card says, it's more of a ramble than anything else. I wanted to make some more quick bumpers for the videos that I do. And I had recently replayed Link's Awakening. I replayed the Switch version, although I've played the DX version a couple times on the 3DS. I only bring that up because I've played other Zelda games. I was never like a big fan of them as a kid. Never really got into them. They just didn't click with me. I never really saw them. I remember seeing like the very first one at I think it was like a friend's house, or like a family friend's house. The very first one never really stuck with me, but this one, I not to say I had never played a Zelda game, but just it never really stuck with me. You know, I played like Link to the Past. I enjoyed it. I played it's like the big one that's come to mind, of course. But the main thing is that Link's Awakening. That is a game that I had never really heard anybody really talk about that much. Like, oh, it's a handheld game. And just, I remember around, what was it, 2018, 2019? I think it must have been like 2017, 2018, I think, when they announced the Switch remake. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I think I've heard of this because I listened to, like, Did You Know Gaming videos and all that. And I decided to try it out. And I had known, I kind of listening into it, some articles discuss it, I had known about what happens. Okay, so if you don't know, for whatever reason, the basic gist is that you play as Link, the main hero from the Legend of Zelda series. And while he's out sailing, I have no idea why he's sailing. But while he's out sailing, he encounters a thunderstorm, he gets knocked out, and he wakes up at an island where he is salvaged by a girl named Marin. And you are introduced to Koholint Island, which is it's an island. It's a very whimsical, interesting place. The notable places are like Mabe Village, which has like the majority of people. There's an animal village to the right, which has nothing but animals. Not even like they're sort of anthropomorphized, but it's mostly just like straight up the animal. Like you're not gonna see like a rabbit dressed in like suspenders or anything. You're just gonna see a rabbit or a bird or a bear. Not to say that they don't wear things. Like, I know that there's a bear that wears, like, a chef's apron, and there's an alligator, one of two alligators, that wear clothing. And somehow you have to figure out what's going on with this island. So you have to figure out what's up with this place, because you can't leave. And, you know, spoilers, you know, this game's almost like, God, when did it come out? Like 1993? Like the 90s, you know, for a well over 20-year-old game. You know, spoilers. It turns out that the whole island is nothing more but a dream of this entity called the Windfish. And it's... I'm gonna stick a picture up on there. You tell me that that's a windfish.
Look at him and tell me there's a god.
So, you are the messenger of awakening. In that you have to wake up the Windfish. But if you do, the island will be gone. And it's kind of... you can kind of figure that out early on, but there's a pivotal moment where you enter into a shrine, and it kind of spells out to you that, yeah, if you do this, the island is going to be destroyed. I believe that those are the exact wording to it. That there's there's a reason why I put emphasis on that. So that's the idea. You know, as you play and you're gathering the instruments to wake up the windfish, you are 1 inch closer to actually destroying the island. And the main thing in the game is that you're developing a relationship with the young girl, Marin. You talk to her several times, you interact with her father a couple times, you know, you hang out with her at the animal village, where, you know, she sings the big song of the game, the Ballad of the Windfish. Now, what I find interesting about this game is that it's very different than the other Zelda games I've played. Those ones have more of there's a central bad guy. For the record, the Zelda games I've played, this is totally off the top of my head. I am not a Zelda expert whatsoever. I have played the NES Legend of Zelda. I've played A Link to the Past. I've played Link's Awakening. I've played most of Ocarina of Time. I can never get into Ocarina of Time. I can't do it. I'm trying to think. I've played Wind Waker, and I think that's where it ends for me. Oh, no. I've played the Minish Cap, and I'm currently playing through the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. So, that's kind of my credit. If you want to call me out for not being a real gamer, you know, there you go. So, what I find interesting is that there's no central bad guy. You're not fighting against like Ganon or Varin or Aghanim or anything like that. You are fighting. There are bad guys, and they're called nightmares, but it's not like there's special emphasis put on them. It's not like, oh, you need to defeat the nightmare to wake up the windfish. Your whole goal the entire time is to just wake up the windfish. And I find that interesting. It's kind of refreshing that you're not just going up against a singular bad guy. It's more of a duty that you have to accomplish. Like, whether you like it or not, this is like a thing you have to do. It's a little, you know, you're kind of left with just the situation. It's not like, oh, I need to stop the nightmares to make sure that everybody's safe. No, it's in order to wake up and go home to Hyrule, you have to basically destroy this island. Which you do at the end. You wake up the windfish and he talks to you, and you awake him. But it's very interesting how they handle the idea of it being the island being destroyed. It's not so much that it's destroyed, it's just it was never really real in the first place. So it's not destroyed, it's just disappearing. You know, and nobody's like panicking or afraid or scared. You know, it's not like you're seeing the villagers quiver in fear and horror at what's going on. They're just living their lives, you know? They're just chilling. And I like that. I like the idea that something horrible could happen, like something you're dreading is going to happen. But it'll be okay. You know, you will come out the other end, and you will be better for it. You'll be all right. You know, it's not something you want to do. It's not, you know, because you make connections as you play. Like I'm not saying like they're deep connections. Like Lady Bow Wow, you know, has like chain chomps. You know, you interact with her a little bit. You interact with like the trendy game guy, the grandfather on the phone. I can't remember his name, but like, and you also engage in the trading mission where you have to like trade different items with everybody. The deepest connection, of course, is Marin. You bring, there's like an escort part, and you bring her to different places, and you talk to her. You know, you get a sense for who she is and what she wants and what she likes, and you know, the pivotal moment that like everybody who plays this game remembers is when you're sitting on the beach with her. And she talks about how she was told that, like, nothing exists outside the island, which is true, because there's nothing beyond the island. It's just the island. And, she wants to be a seagull. And if you play the game without dying, it's revealed at the end that it's kind of left up to your imagination, but it shows her picture and it shows a seagull. That her wish is fulfilled, which I like that. I like the idea that, again, it's kind of vague because there's two endings. There's a regular ending where Link wakes up, he's on Driftwood, he kind of questions for a minute if it was all just a dream, but then he sees the windfish fly, and he's like, okay, well, it happened. The windfish is here. But I like to imagine that, like, the windfish is maybe that powerful to give life to an imaginary figure and to grant its wish. It's a very... I listened to a video. I'll try to post it up if I can find it again. But I listened to a video about how all the Zelda stories are dark and heavy. But this one kind of hits different from the other stories I've heard. It's a very heavy story in that, like, you're basically going to make everybody disappear, but they were dreams in the first place, and they will continue on as long as Link remembers them. And I'm going to be honest, I can't say off the top of my head the whole timeline thing, so I know the series deals with reincarnations, so who knows? I think it's like it's Link to the Past and then Link's Awakening, if I'm not mistaken. So like, and then like the Oracle of Ages and Seasons game. So as you're playing Oracles of Ages and Seasons, he has the memory of Koholint in his heart. Which, funnily enough, I bring that up because for the first time I listened to the manga dub done by Zelda Universe. That's what it is. And it expands on things in that it rearranges some things in the story to kind of make more sense in a manga, but it adds a character in Felicia. But Felicia is a little fairy that accompanies Link, and to carry all the instruments, since he's not going to stick it in a bag. But we find out, like, she knows his destiny early on to be the messenger of awakening. So she's kind of, like, trying to be standoffish towards him, like, not get attached, but she can't help it. Also, the manga kind of makes it more clear that Link is spending, like, a couple days on Koholint Island. Not just, like, a day, which the game does. And I think it works how do I want to phrase this? It works fine in both. Because in the game, it's a dream, so, like, everything kind of happens all at once. Like, the characters talk about, like, oh, you'll have to leave someday, which is true. Because you could be playing, like, forever, really. And it'll still be the same sunny day, they'll still have the same things going on, because it's a dream. Dreams don't radically change time. Like, time can be either stagnant or, bounce all over the place. In the manga, of course, it serves to show, like, Link is getting attached to everybody. So it when he comes to the decision of waking the windfish and everybody gets destroyed, it's heavier on him. And of course, hey, that's not all Link's Awakening is all about. It's also known for kind of being one of the more weird Zelda games, I'll say, as cliche as that is. Famously, it has a bunch of Mario and Nintendo characters in it. Like, I think somebody said, like, the remake of the 2019 Link's Awakening is, like, the first time Wart's been seen in a game in, like, 30 years. So there you go. I personally do not like stealing from, because you can steal in the game. You can go into the shop, steal an item, and permanently your name will be changed to Thief. So I don't really like doing that because I'm one of those people that doesn't like being the bad guy in games. And of course, the first one I played was on the Game Boy Color version on my 3DS. And that one has some... I wish they kind of brought over the idea of, from that version, the photo ops. You know, because in the Game Boy Color version, you can visit like a little mouse person, and at certain points in the game, they take your picture, and that was supposed to be used with the Game Boy camera. Obviously, that was not used here. Instead, we are replaced with, I think his name is Drampe. He usually appears in other games, but I think his first game was in Ocarina of Time. And you play the dungeon arranging thing, which was like a backdoor pilot for... it was a backdoor, like, idea for a Zelda Maker, like the Mario Maker games, which I don't think is going to work out, because Zelda dungeons are only interesting in so much, like, what would be the point of getting rupees? What would be the point in getting items? Because, you know, I know the items that you get typically stay in the dungeon, but you can use those items on other things in the overworld. And I don't see what the incentive is to make a dungeon. I remember again in one of those Did You Know Gaming videos when they were making the first Zelda game, they toyed around with the idea of customizing and making dungeons, but they found the idea of just playing the dungeons more interesting. And it kind of sucks because like there's a heart piece, I believe, behind it, and it's kind of boring, and you can't even make your own tiles. You have to use tiles that were in other dungeons. That's like the only negative part I really have about the Switch version. I love the art styles for both. I love the Switch version for its like the idea that this is like a playset. I think it really works well in showing like this cute little world, contrasting the heaviness of the story going up against it. I think it works to kind of balance it out. And of course, I like the Game Boy Color version. I say Game Boy Color version, it really came out on the Game Boy. But I love the Game Boy Color version style in that it really utilizes the Game Boy's aesthetic really well, in my opinion. You know, everything, you're kind of left to fill in the gaps, make it a little more as realistic as you want it to be, but you don't have to. And, you know, it's kind of a shame that really this is going to be the only kind of Zelda game like itself, because, I don't know, I still have a hard time getting into Zelda games, because it's just like, rescue the... Like, maybe I have not played Breath of the Wild, I have not played Skyward Sword, but I have seen like playthroughs of them, and I don't get the same feeling between Link and Zelda as I do between Link and Marin. You know, I just don't get that feeling, and I think that's something kind of pivotal, I would imagine. But I also get it. They have, that's kind of what makes Link's Awakening so special in the first place, is that it's so drastically different than the other Zelda games. So, there you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, because, hey, if this worked out, great. If it didn't, let me know in the comments. Until then, you know, here's the bumper.